So good afternoon. My name is John Mitchell. I'm the Director of Corporate Engagement for Arizona State University. I did want to thank the Arizona Center of Innovation for allowing me to speak here today. Actually, I have a lot of respect for what Greater Tucson has done. I think Phoenix is about 4 times the size of Tucson. Tucson has about twice as many SBIR grantees as we do. So you're obviously doing some things right that we probably need to learn from. So first, a little bit about ASU. Can I hold this? 92,000 students now, so making us the largest university in the country. $350 million in research. Not as big as the University of Arizona, but we don't have a medical school. The Fulton Schools of Engineering is just about 19,000 students. So that's the largest engineering college in the country. To put that in perspective, that's about the same size as Georgia Tech. So our president, Michael Crow, is very much pro-growth, and he's been able to do that for a number of years now. The important number on this slide is actually this 321 tenured faculty. So for companies looking for faculty to partner with on SBIRs, that's a very, very large number, and it's difficult to find the right faculty. So I'm going to have some suggestions on how you might approach that. Just another fun fact for you, the engineering college itself is about $90 million in research expenditures, so it's about a third of what the university does. A couple of our institutes that are, I think, noteworthy for this group. The Global Security Initiative is something we just recently launched. It's a big cybersecurity program. Also, we have a Flexible Display Center. That's a $50 million center funded by the Army. So I think that a lot of SBIRs relative to this group today would come out of there. Also, our New Space Initiative would probably have some technologies that NASA would be interested in. Now, so navigating the Fulton Schools of Engineering for SBIR support. I am suggesting that, yes, you can look for an individual faculty, but that's actually very hit or miss, okay? I mean, you think you have the right one, the papers sound right, maybe you've never worked with them before. That can work. I'm not saying it doesn't. Just like when you buy a stock, right, it may go up, may not go up, right? But if you join a center, I think this is something to consider. When you join a center, like the CTO of Freescale said, this is like buying a mutual fund, right? You've got a fund of faculty that you can work with, kind of get to know. Also, you get access to the postdocs, right? Sometimes it's actually a little bit tricky to have faculty work on an SBIR as the PI because of all the rules. Postdoc is different, right? I mean, a postdoc is kind of unencumbered as far as those rules are concerned. They're not, you know, tied to the university the same way a faculty member would be. So I'm suggesting identify a relevant center, and I'll show you some of them, kind of become part of that ecosystem, get to know the faculty and get to know the postdocs. And once you are in there, you're not only going to know who the technical experts are, but you're going to kind of learn, like, who are the people that you'd like to work with, who gets along, you know, with their peers. And you can find those centers. I know this is long. They're going to get a copy of these slides, I assume, Anita? So here is the link where it lists all of the centers. If you also kind of, I'm offering that any engineering-related topics, you can contact me. My email is there. For non-engineering, I have a colleague who will be here tomorrow, Janice Kleinwart. Her scope is kind of across the university, and I specialize at the engineering level. Recently, we got a grant from the National Science Foundation called the NNCI. We've been able to get funding to create a network of different labs. So when I had my own startup company, getting access to facilities can be very difficult. This is an ideal way for a small business to get a lot of traction and kind of leverage the public resources, right? The resources at a university are kind of owned by the state, and most companies, most people, even people at the university don't realize that a lot of those facilities are available to you. For example, the Leroy Eyring Center for Solid State Science. This is arguably one of the best microscopy labs in the country. I think it's between us and Pittsburgh. The general public can go in there. You can use equipment, million-dollar microscopes and things like that, and it's kind of a pay-as-you-go basis. There is some certifications and things like that, or you could just simply pay some faculty and students to maybe do some tests and measurements for you. There's absolutely no IP implications, okay? And the link for that center is right at the bottom of your page here. The ASU NanoFab, and I'm pointing these particular labs out because they're open to the public, and they're also a part of this NNCI, meaning if you become part of the NNCI, you can get access to all these labs as if it were one organization. In the past, it was different departments, and they'd have their own pricing and all these kind of things. So the ASU NanoFab, if you go to engineering to this link, they'll list all the equipment that's available and the expertise. And so for a small company trying to develop a prototype, this is probably a very cost-effective way. I'm not sure, right now there's a big, in my opinion only, not as an ASU employee, but as a citizen, the whole makerspace movement. If you think about what's at a makerspace compared to a university, it's a mouse and an elephant. So if you can figure out how to access facilities within a university, that's a pretty nice makerspace. The solar power labs, and this one is very near and dear to my heart, actually. I'm one of the directors of this center. This is arguably the largest solar power lab in the country. It has something like a 4,000 square foot clean room. It's the only university lab in the country, I believe, that can actually develop a silicon module, a silicon solar cell and module. We actually have a student pilot line that can make commercially competitive on an efficiency basis modules. We can't do it on a cost basis, but on an efficiency basis. So we have students that can build 20% efficient solar cells, which is competitive with China, frankly. And you could find out about those labs here at pv.asu.edu. And then more generally, if you go to sharedresources.asu.edu, that'll talk about the facilities across the entire university. I'm highlighting a few of the ones that I think would be relevant for this audience. Across ASU, there's 34 different centers. I have a link in here that can tell you each one of these centers, and so I think by looking at the names, you could get close to where you want to be. And then let's say I want to look at Connection One, for example. It's been around for a long time. They work on, power on a chip, right? And so there's a lot of electrical engineering faculty in there. The companies that join that center, they get to know the faculty, they get to know the students, and then when an SBIR topic comes up, right, they can jump on it right away. They don't start from scratch and say, well, gee, this is a nice fit for us. We need to go find a faculty member. You'll already know who they are. So this is going to be a little bit of an advertisement for a center. So these centers that I'm going to talk about are mostly NSF-funded centers, and then there's two different sizes, right? There's an engineering research center. I'll refer to it as an ERC. And then there's an IUCRC, Industry University Collaborative Research Center. Government agencies like a lot of acronyms. It's a smaller version. But When you look at the National Science Foundation funds about 20% of all university funding across the nation. I know ASU falls pretty much almost directly into that category. I think U of A probably gets more NIH funding with your medical school. But anyway, there's three components to these centers: research, education, and then industry. So companies, these centers are required to have company participation, and then when you join those centers as a company, you can kind of direct what research gets funded from the funds that come from the NSF. So at ASU, there's 20 engineering research centers in the country, and so NSF, largest funding agency for a university typically. The ERC program, that's their largest grant. So this is kind of the crown jewel of grants. There's 20 of them in the country. 3 of them are at ASU. And I'm going to talk about this one in particular just to give you an idea of what it means to be a consortium. So this consortium, it's a consortium of 7 universities, including the University of Arizona. It's led by ASU, but U of A, MIT, Caltech, MIT, Georgia Tech, University of Delaware, University of New Mexico. I may have missed one in there, but there's 8 universities, all kind of brand name universities. It's 30 faculty and 70 students, all kind of working together, meeting twice a month over video, working on projects together. So companies come in there and they can say, like, you know, I want to have this one particular prototype built. Well, we can do everything in that center literally from sand all the way to the module because of that capacity. Now, that's just one center. This center has a similar model, but it's on geotechnics. This center, this one's actually headed out of Rice, but it's basically on water treatment for nano. On IUCRC, there's only 59 IUCRCs in the nation. There's 7 of them at ASU, and these are very kind of well-prescribed centers, meaning the NSF says you shall meet on this regular basis. You shall have these kind of reports. You shall have your industry advisory board, and these are the rules and regs. And so in some respects, that's a negative from our perspective because, you know, they say, well, you know, go innovate, but this is exactly the way you need to innovate. That's a little bit of a downside to it, but the upside to it for a company is you know exactly what you're getting, right? It's not you're told one thing and you get another. This is very prescribed program, and it's very regimentated. The value proposition, I won't read this, but it's access to, you know, all those resources, lab resources, ways to investigate gaps in your technology roadmap. The workforce development side tends to be a little bit more important for big companies. Some companies, that's all they want. And if you think about it, if you're at one of these centers and you go to a meeting with them and the students and everyone present every month or two on a regular basis, the difference between being a part of a center like this to hire someone versus hiring someone, if you interview someone, they could sound great, they have good grades, but when you join a center, you see how they get along with their peers. And we all know that you could be really smart and you could be the smartest person in the world, but if you can't get along with your peers, you're not going to be very productive, and you're not going to be very helpful to your company. I'll kind of skip over these things, but maybe this one is important. It's financially leveraged, meaning, so the one center that I talked about, we get $4 million a year from both the National Science Foundation and the Department of Energy. Now, a company could come in and for thousands of dollars essentially reap the benefits of $4 million worth of research. Now, the IP rights are non-exclusive, but you know that's the trade-off. So with that, I'll see if there's any questions. And again, it's John Mitchell. I can cover any engineering connections that you'd like. Outside of engineering, I'm going to refer you to Janice Kleinwort, who will be here tomorrow at the luncheon, and you feel free to, if you're interested, get her contact information and card. So with that, I'll see if there's any questions.
There's
Pardon me? So it's a 4,000 square foot clean room that, okay. So basically what is talk about the largest solar clean room or lab in the country, and I want to preface that university based. So it's a place where a lot of universities can do parts of a solar cell or test and measurement. We could do the entire manufacturing, right? All the way from the wafer through the module, and then even beyond that, there's a thing called TUV Rhinelander, which is a spin out. We could even do kind of destruction testing. So when you want to sell a module into the marketplace, you have to have it certified that it's going to last 30 years. And so we have an organization that started on the roof of one of our buildings where they started actually doing destructive testing. Accelerated lifetime testing on these modules became so popular, we spun it out as a company. And then that company got acquired by TUV Rhinelander, which if you're not familiar with that, that's kind of like the underwriter's lab of Europe. So I hope that answers your question. Okay. Okay, are any other questions? Yes, there's a global security initiative. That's fairly new. I'm sorry? No, this is not, because again, remember, this is software, right? And so it's not a lab, it's in, our faculty's minds, I guess. But no, that one is not a shared resource, doesn't fall into that category. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. The previous speaker mentioned the U of A. Is he still here? Do you work with Gail? Oh, Mike Kazicki, okay. Okay. Yeah, and I know that Mike Kazicki has developed some type of little finger. Yeah, so I think of it as supply chain security. So if I'm Boeing and I'm building an airplane, I want to know where all these parts came from. And he develops essentially like a little unique fingerprint that identifies even down to the screw that, yes, this screw actually came from this reputable company and it's not counterfeit. I mean, that's my version of what you said. Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much.